Through the chair to council, my name is Jeff DeMillmeister. I'm project supervisor with engineering. Presenting this report on behalf of Ms. Robinson for the 2018-2019 Connecting Links program intake. The Ministry of Transportation has provided provincial funding for capital projects through the Connecting Link program. A connecting link is a municipal road that connects two ends of a provincial highway through a community. In Norfolk County, the connecting links include the Queensway and Norfolk Street North in Simcoe, and King Street and James Street in Delhi. The funding program will reimburse 90% of eligible costs, which include engineering and construction costs for the road work. However, it does not include costs associated with water mains or sanitary sewers. Most recently, the resurfacing of the Queensway West in Simcoe was funded through the Connecting Link program. Public Works staff has reviewed the capital forecast and suggests that the application be submitted to include the reconstruction projects for King Street from Mill Street to James Street and James Street from King Street to Argyle Street in Delhi. The current capital plan identifies King Street in year 2020 and James Street in year 2025. So as part of the Connecting Link program application, a resolution that identifies these projects being endorsed by council is required to accompany the application. So thank you, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. We do have some questions. Councillor Columbus first.
Mr. Chairman, I have been getting many complaints about the condition of the road at King Street and James Street in Delhi. And we have, I believe it's Mr. DeHaan told me one time that there's between 10,000 and 13,000 vehicles a day travel that route. So it's significantly used. It's in deteriorated condition. Jeff knows that there's a lot of times there's work has to be done every week or two on King Street especially. There's potholes there, and it's time that it was done. The Connecting Link program was available. We did two projects in the town of Simcoe here on the Queensway, and it's time that this was resurfaced. So I will move the recommendation.
Have a mover. Thank you very much. So you're going to second that, Councillor Button? Okay, so we have a yes. You're going to be third on the list now. We have a motion on the floor, moved and seconded. The next speaker is Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to engineering. These ones here is the second one here, the James Street to King Street, or from King to Argyle project. It's not in our capital plan until 2025. That's 8 years down the road. Why is that? Why is it coming so soon? Why are you recommending it so soon?
Through the chair to Councillor Height. Yes, we are allowed by the province for the application to make two submissions. So that's what we're doing. We're making two submissions. We base that on our capital plan that we have now. So if we can get funding for it up front, we can bring that forward and offset some of the costs for construction. A significant amount of costs.
With that, you mentioned, I think I heard you correctly, they don't fund sanitary or water underneath these road projects, is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Height, no, those are not provincially funded eligible costs. So.
You know, have we had them inspected? Do we expect to have to do any work on those that are not included in this right now?
Through the chair, yes, they are in a deteriorated state right now, and we will be replacing them.
Is it a capital item that's in our 2018 budget, or is it in those 2020 budgets and 2025 respective budgets?
Through the chair, yes, they're in the projects that are identified in 2020 for King Street and in 2025 for James Street include sanitary and water main replacement.
Get a price tag on that?
Through the chair, I believe in the report, the estimated cost for both of these, for both King Street and James Street, it's $700,000 for the water and the sanitary sewer. So those are ineligible costs for funding.
700K on each one?
Yes, correct.
Really? Okay. Nothing else around that doesn't get into that so soon that we have on our list?
Through the chair, no, these, as I said, for the connecting links, the only ones in Norfolk County are the Queensway, which we have resurfaced here over the last 2 years, Norfolk Street North in Simcoe, and these two streets in Delhi.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last question, Mr. Chair, has to go to the treasurer. Since these are capital projects in another year, that eligible funding, though, our portion, the 173K or the 148K, how is that dealt with? As in terms of moving it from that budget to moving it to now?
Through the chair, originally these projects were funded through the federal gas tax reserve, so whatever portion that we would not be able to fund through this grant program would continue to be funded through the federal gas tax portion, so we would just split the funding. And moving it from 1 year to the current year wouldn't affect that.
So, but you were expecting to get a lump sum in 2020, so how do you move it forward to 2018 if the project does go through?
With the federal gas tax funding, currently our reserve is approximately about $6 million. And what we do is we forecast that out for 10 years with the projects and with the funding that we expect over the 10 years. So moving the project closer, we would be able to fund that portion this year. However, with the grant, that relieves the federal gas tax that we would have used for that project, and we can use it for other projects going forward. So another way to answer your question is, with our 10-year capital forecast, with these changes today, as well as the capital budget that's coming in a few weeks, every year we would reprioritize and refund these projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have Oliver Brutton in black. Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question got answered in terms of where we have connecting links, but I'd like to suggest maybe Colburn Street in downtown Simcoe should be a connecting link as well, but I know that won't go too far.
Councilor Brutton.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you to Jeff. Jeff, I apologize. I'm not that familiar with the street names in Delhi, but I know it's the highway through Delhi, number 3, correct?
Through the chair, to Council Brenton, yes, it's Highway 3 all the way through Delhi.
Yeah, can you give me an idea though where, like King Street is, like the dimensions, where they run from? Can you describe them for me? Are we talking right out, I know where some of the stoplights are by the different facilities there. Where are they? Where are we talking from what lengths to lengths there? Can you give me an idea? Like where's King Street, for example? Where does it run from?
Through the chair, yes, King Street is more the downtown area. And then James Street is going south out of town by the high school.
Councilor Columbus has agreed to...
King Street runs from the Tobacco Museum down to Church Street or Canadian Tire, basically.
Okay.
And James Street runs from the Canadian Tire down to the German Hall
To that next light there?
to the next light.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay then?
And, yeah, and if I may, just,
Oh, yeah, you had the floor.
Jeff, when you also, you mentioned the cost for the water and sewer, and we pay 10% of the rest of the cost of the project, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
And just out of curiosity, if we don't get the connecting link funding, are these projects able to, are the water and sewer, are we looking to hold that off then until these dates you mentioned?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. They would proceed as scheduled in the capital plan. Just if we're receiving the provincial funding, we would bump this forward.
Okay, all right, thank you. And my only other question is the connecting link north of Davis Street to the end of the 4 lanes. Where's that in our long-term? That's still connecting link out there. I just wonder where that is. And I know there's no push for underground there, but I'm sure it'll come up for paving at some point. Is that in our capital forecast anywhere?
Through the chair, actually, Norfolk Street North right now is not in the capital plan. I would imagine it would be coming in fairly soon into the 10-year. We could also look at possibly resurfacing that or actually submitting that as another connecting link program application in the future also.
And that's just from Davis to the limit. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Black.
Well, Councillor Brunton asked the question I was going to ask about Norfolk Street North, but it's just a shave and a pave or whatever. There's no underground there at all. So why wouldn't we have that in? And you said you were going to apply. When?
Through the chair, yeah, we did look at Norfolk Street North for an application. However, the projects that have been recommended to be submitted were based on the current capital plan. So since Norfolk Street wasn't in the capital plan, it wasn't submitted. And we were trying to use potential funding to offset the significant costs.
Okay, but you're working on that, are you? Norfolk Street North. Yes.
Yes, we'll definitely look at that for future applications.
Okay, and then how come the Delhi has 2 separate applications? Is one for 2018 to be completed in 18 and then the second one in 19?
Through the chair, they're submitted as two separate applications. It may be approved to receive funding for both or for one or none. We'd have to wait for the province.
What are the chances of getting the money?
Sorry, I can't answer that.
Okay,
We'll have
but,
to wait
but
and
why
see.
is it 218-19? Why isn't it just 218? Is it like the program's every 2 years? Is that it?
Through the chair, for these projects, it's likely that we'll have, if we do receive funding, we would have the engineering completed in 2018, and we'd have the construction completed in 2019
Okay, for both?
for both.
Oh, okay. So that's the reason for engineering on 1 year, construction on the second year.
Correct.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion moved by Councillor Columbus, second by Councillor Brunton, that we approve this. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, that brings us to Health and Social Services Advisory Committee revised terms of reference. Then we have a motion, a notice of motion by Councillor Black, and we have those items. Do we need a break or we want to keep going? How many want a break? 5 minutes. That's 5. All right, take 5. I gotta go pee.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. No home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you.
All right. Councillor Black? Councillor Black, if you take your seat, we can get started. Councillor Sonnenberg, or Councillor Brunton? Let's go. We got 5. 5 is a quorum, isn't it? Okay. We have a quorum. Let's get at it. To the pattern. Where do we want to go? Okay, we have a staff report from you, young lady. You are on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report before you is for council approval of the revised terms of reference for the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee, which was reviewed at the Advisory Committee on July the 25th of this year. The proposed changes are attached in the terms of references have been bolded. Council will recall that during the health unit audit recommendations that there was a request or a direction recommending that subcommittees be formed. Staff have added the subcommittees within the terms of reference, and the advisory committee will serve in the capacity of subcommittees. The term of reference does need to be approved by both Norfolk and Haldimand counties, so the report is also going to Haldimand counties. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Black.
I've had all my questions answered and ready to move the recommendation contained in the report.
We have a motion on the floor, moved, seconded by the mayor, and now Councillor Height, you are questioning.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Miranda. How much does it cost to have these meetings?
Through the chair, just the cost of staff time.
Oh, so the board members don't get paid?
Through the chair, the Norfolk board members don't. I'm not 100% confident in saying the same for Haldimand. I would have to confirm that with Haldimand Council.
Okay, and then my last question, Mr. Chair, isn't this a bit redundant? Because here we sit, we just had this meeting, and members of the board from Norfolk would have already had this meeting. It seems painful. Personally, I would quit, but...
Through the chair to Councillor Height, there is some redundancy with the duplication. However, my predecessor and council had made this committee to enable Haldimand to have a voice and to influence the decision, is why this committee was established and continues to be utilized in that fashion.
Okay, so in your opinion, dissolving it wouldn't give them enough of a voice other than an email?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, communications. We don't have any motions. Notice of motion. Just a notice? Yes, please. We're going to have it read so the listening public will know what your motion was, or is.
Thank you. Through the chair, we do have a motion by Councillor Black. It was a notice of motion at the last council and committee meeting, and it's regarding Jalen Crescent. The motion as it reads and as in the agenda is that staff be directed to provide an update respecting Jalen Crescent, to include an overview of past decisions and rulings upon the street, and that as part of the update, council be provided advice in regards to what aspects of the matter can be discussed in public and what aspects should remain confidential.
Yes, Councillor Black.
I'm going to withdraw my motion.
Oh, okay.
And the reason, I'll give you the reason why, if you don't mind. I did have someone contact me, and I got advice from the clerk that the best way to proceed would be through a notice of motion, so that's what I did. In the meantime, I have met with staff, county manager and Lee Robinson, And I have, I believe all my questions have been answered. So personally, I see no need to ask or have council approve this motion, I guess, unless somebody else is interested, but I'd like to withdraw my motion.
The motion has been withdrawn. Anybody else want to put it on the table? Oh, we have Councillor Height. Is that allowed? Yes. So Councillor Height, you were moving this motion?
Yeah, I will. You know, we heard a little bit from staff. I haven't been in the secret session where they informed the other member about this stuff. I'd like to know.
Okay. We have a notice of motion. It's a motion on the table. Do we have a seconder? We have a mover and a seconder. So we now have a notice of motion, which will be dealt with next week. You want to deal with it now? Want to deal with it now? Yeah. Okay, we want to deal with it now. So you have the right to speak first.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just like I said earlier, I've received some calls over this. I think it should be brought forward what's going on over there. There's some OMB rulings, there's work being done. I'm curious. I'll bite.
Thank you. And the seconder, do you wish to speak? That would
Well,
be you, Councillor Brunton.
I've had inquiries from a few people on it, and I too have, like Councillor Black, I have spoke with some staff members. I don't think I've got totally what I want. I've been assured that things are being looked after, but perhaps there could be some information relayed to Mr. Height if need be. But the only thing I must admit is the whole issue was dealt with in open session here some time back at a planning issue with all the parties, their lawyers and everything, and I certainly don't see anything secretive about it. The OMB orders were all out, been issued over the years, and all I'm saying is I have got enough information. I believe it's being looked after, but perhaps Councillor Height needs some more information.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor, moved and seconded. Those in favor of the motion that is on the floor, raise your hands, please. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will vote in favor of it as well, so that's 5. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. The motion is carried. Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, we will go to the next item. I think what we're going to do now is other business, and then we'll go to the closed session, so we don't have to keep the press waiting. So other business. Councillor Brunton, do you have any other business for us tonight? Councillor Black.
I do. I think it's in my
You want me to come back?
phone. Nope, I got it here.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote it in my phone. I just had to pull it up. Yeah, just a question, I guess through you, it would be to Bill Cridna. I had some complaints about Briarwood Parks, just about dogs running loose, unleashed, and of course dog droppings. Do we monitor our parks? I know we've got 2 dog parks, and maybe people are thinking that it's acceptable to allow their dogs to run loose in the other parks, and so I'm just wondering if there's any monitoring that goes on in any of the other parks.
Through the chair, I guess the easiest way to answer that, I'm sure if a staff member is there, it's monitored. Other than that, complaints like this, we would react on complaints from the public, and then we'd investigate that way.
Yep, so it would be by complaint.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And thank you for that. I did have a complaint, and I went up. There was a couple of people, and of course you get these all the time, and it's speeding. So I'm not sure if I can pass this off to our 2 representatives on the Police Services Board, but I did have 2 families that were concerned about speeding on Churchill Crescent, and it's a little bit odd because it's not very long, but there is a church at the end, and it sort of goes downhill. Speed limit's only 40 kilometers, and there are no sidewalks, and there are lots of families with children. So I wondered if I could just pass that off to the two representatives and take that up at the Police Services Board? Would that be the most appropriate thing to do?
Councillor Oliver wishes to respond to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Councillor Black, I would say yes, if you're willing. Either, it's easier for the mayor and I if we get it as an email, let's say from any colleague around the table. So if you could fire off an email to one or the other of us saying about the complaints, where and under what circumstances we'll ask to have it put on the next agenda. What typically happens for council's information in those situations, bit of a discussion around the police board, and typically the board asks the staff to try, or not to try, but to put up the speed spy unit, which is this subtle little, doesn't record license plates or anything, it just records vehicle numbers and how fast they're going to determine if it really is a problem or not. So that'd be the next step.
Well, and I did explain that to the people, that we do have a speed spy, and so I'll write an email to the two of you and explain the situation.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that there was something else, but I forgot, just like,
Well,
but I'm always saying that just to make Councillor Columbus feel a lot better about forgetting earlier, so.
Well, thank you for making me feel better. Mayor, I'm not even going to leave you to last. How would you like to speak now?
I'll be real quick.
Okay.
I first want to say I don't think there's this road or street in this county that people don't speed on. And I'm really surprised a dead-end circle street like Churchill would be one where they are. And sometimes it's even people that live on those streets. So anyhow, if we hear about it, we'll deal with it. I want to thank Marlene Watson for filling in tonight for Lee. And I know Lee is recovering medical leave and will be back shortly. So I've wished her well on behalf of council. When we meet again in a regular time, Mr. Chair, next Tuesday, by then we will have gone through the Norfolk County Fair, and I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving between, seems funny, Thanksgiving and the fair over a week tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for your good wishes. Are you serving turkey to everybody? Councillor Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By far, the most calls and emails I get now are concerning marijuana grow ops and what's to become of this. I said, well, we have no bylaws to control marijuana production. It's a federal issue or a provincial issue. We have nothing. We have no control. And I'm getting, hey, if you don't have any bylaws, enact some to control them. So I don't know what's involved there, but to Chris or the two members on the Police Services Board, I know you discussed it at some length at the last meeting. What shall I tell my complaining callers regarding grow ops? They're complaining about the smell. They can't sleep in their own homes at night, and on it goes. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver, would you wish to
Mr.
respond?
Chair, either myself or the mayor, and Mayor Luke will chime in if I don't remember it correctly. We did have a really good discussion at the last Police Service Board about this kind of thing. And the one thing that I took away from that discussion in particular, I mean, the OPP are awaiting new legislation from the province and the feds, just like we are in Norfolk County. But even under the present circumstance, if the OPP receive a complaint, so in other words, if we as a councillor get a complaint about from a constituent that a grow op is being developed too close to them, that complaint can be passed on to the OPP, obviously, and if they receive a complaint, they have the legal means by which to find out two things. Number one, is there either a license or is that a registered grow op with Health Canada? That's the first thing. And secondly, they apparently can determine or have the right to get the information as to how many plants are to be grown in association with that license or that registration. Now, then it becomes less clear because they're not sure they have the right to go onto that property and do a random inspection to determine if they've got 100 plants when they're authorized for 100 instead of 1,000. But that, at least for us, I think at Police Board was somewhat encouraging. I can't speak for our planning department, and you may want to ask Mr. Baird. I know staff are coming back to us this fall, aren't they, with an update report as to what the county can do.
Just on that same issue, I did have a call today, and the person was suggesting that this is not a farm operation, that maybe it should be considered as recreation, since that's what people are doing with this substance. And maybe there's something we could do that way. I just pass that along to the Police Services Board as well. Councillor Black.
Just on this issue, and through you to Chris, I was speaking to Chris earlier, and I thought Chris did say that there'd be some sort of a report coming to council quite soon about this topic.
Please.
Sure, if I could add, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Oliver's information. So the county does have in their zoning bylaws a means to regulate those large manufacturing sites. Think of American is one of those. So that looks after setbacks and distances to other homes and sensitive uses. It deals with emissions and filtration and noise, that sort of thing. What we're dealing with is maybe just to tack on to Mr. Chair's comment about recreation. Recreation, that whole concept is something that is subject to federal law next year. But what we're talking about here are those personal licensed growers that can grow for themselves and one other person and 2 additional people, so up to 4 at one location, and that could be anywhere. If they have that license and a prescription, they can grow. So, and that's the problem that we're experiencing right now, because they are right in residential areas, anywhere there's a home or a property. Some people don't mind the smell. Others, I think the communications that staff and council have been getting, these are considerable, large-sized operations. So last week, we convened a meeting with staff, an initial meeting. There was a Police Services Board meeting. There was a webinar with provincial and other municipal officials so that we can get up to speed with that. We have some ideas. We may be able to bring a zoning bylaw amendment back to council this fall. This will be a number of recommendations that we will make to council, and you will decide what you'd like to do. That could hopefully, we can't stop it. If it's legal, but we can regulate those nuisances, particularly noise, squeaky fans, bright lights, and the odor emission. That's what we hope to regulate. So we are working hard on that, and I know for anyone who's listening, we hear you, and we're doing our very best. We'll bring a report back to you, our decision makers, so that we can perhaps deal with some of these problems. But it will be this fall for sure.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chairman, just on the same issue, then I did ask, anyway.
Yeah.
What about charcoal filters?
Well, again, I think we impose charcoal filtration or some sort of filtration on all our fast food locations so that they control that odor. That's one solution. That's what the big growers, those big industrial scale growers, use. Whether there's something that's residentially available or something of that scale is yet to be defined. But I think that the elephant in the room is that you may be able to grow for 4 people, but the amount that you can grow, depending on your need or who you're growing for, it's all over the map. And it's not just the one-time plants. You need to have a series of plants in various stages growing up to cultivation to keep that the quantity provided. So this is what we're all learning, and it's very new to many of us. So.
Okay. I have Councillor Columbus first.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I too have been getting these calls, and I wish that Health Canada would communicate better with the OPP and the municipality, and I understand that there was a number of mayors got together to send a message to Health Canada a while ago. I don't know if Mayor Luke had heard about that. I read it in, I think it was the Toronto Star. And just wondering, what are we doing about these 911 civic addresses? Are we going to, Mr. Baird, are we going to be pulling those ABCs from those addresses, or will that continue the way it is?
Through the chair, that's under review currently. I can't really speak to it at this point. It would not be appropriate, but suffice to say it's being looked at, and there's no additional multiple addresses being issued at this point.
Good. And it's interesting to note that there's probably more control right now over the production and movement of tobacco than there is control over marijuana production at this time by Health Canada.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver, I think you were next.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to add to this discussion, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to look to Ms. Miranda on this one. Obviously, some of the complaints we've all been receiving are the odors, as Mr. Baird correctly pointed out, and some people are saying in their complaints it's making their family members ill to have to smell it. Are we aware, Marlene, of any other jurisdictions in southern Ontario where residents are experiencing the same kind of problem from these small grow-ups, and is there anything we can do through the health unit in terms of air quality that would give some teeth to a bylaw amendment? I hope you're part of the discussions that we are talking about here, and could you enlighten us that way?
Through the chair to Councillor Oliver, we are in communications with Chris's team and working through that, and we will continue to do so. I can't speak specifically about other jurisdictions, but I will definitely take that back and we'll look into it and what type of air quality that could potentially be utilized to support bylaws moving forward.
Finished, Councillor Columbus?
Just to add, could it be possible to invite somebody from Health Canada to our council chambers here to explain licensing and all the issues that have to be dealt with marijuana production, whether it's for medicinal purposes or for the licensing of the new facilities?
Ms. Miranda, do you think maybe you could look into that?
I will, thank you.
Thank you very much. Done. Mayor Luke.
Through you to Mr. Baird, I know the staff report is coming and you're getting lots of input from various departments. Do you have a rough date of when we're going to see that back here? I know the people that I've been dealing with, several people keep asking me, it's very urgent that we get this thing brought to this table. Do you have a date yet? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, in all honesty, it's still premature. We want to make sure that you have all the facts to make an informed decision. So we can't rush it, but I made a commitment to you that we'll have something back to you before the end of the year. Before the end of the year, so this fall.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sonnenberg, did I get you? You don't? Yes? How about you, Councillor Height?
Are you sure, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Height, I tell you right now, I'd be glad to sit here and listen to you.
Okay, excellent.
But I want to leave at 10:30.
I only have one thing here. It's just 37 parts. That's all, Mr. Chair. Speed limit changes to towns. We were talking about speeding earlier. I remember Public Works was supposed to bring a speed limit. They were doing a quiz around towns because I happen to have a town by me, and one way out of town is 60, the other way is 50. All right, so they had mentioned before, it's probably been a year, they were going to go around to all the different towns, because I know the people in Renton, it's annoying over there, and in different places like that to standardize a bunch of things. Maybe there could be a follow-up with Ms. Robinson when she gets back. And next up is a purchasing report. Again, on this agenda, we have exemption to the purchasing policy. Are we up to one every week, Mr. Chair? I can't remember, one or two, or every day it seems like a whole pile of these purchasing exemptions. And then the other report we were looking at in the secret binders, P cards were used. All of it sole sourced. And I know we have a new manager of HR, so I'm going to just bring him up to date that we're looking for a purchasing report. You will find it on our action item list, I believe, and it's been threatening to come for quite some time. Mr. Chair, I really want to see that report so Council can make some decisions about how to fix some of the issues that I'm seeing around. All right, so that's two off the list. Mr. Chair, last week we dealt with a hiring freeze. I'm sorry I missed that. I wasn't feeling very good. And so did we deal with the hiring freeze that doesn't actually exist last week, or did we not?
I think you've identified it very well. However, so that I have a bias on this, I'll ask the county manager to respond.
Mr. Chair, I want to just say, and I realize my colleague here was away, but we did not allow reconsideration. I don't know why we're talking about it. I know he wasn't here, so I'm not saying that but your motion was to reconsider. It was defeated. So I don't think we can talk about it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm good with that, Mr. Chair. I apologize for bringing that up. So is the hiring freeze still in effect? It is. Oh, okay. Even with the 8 new hires, forget it, Mr. Chair, we'll let that go. So this Wednesday coming up, we have the Long Point Region Conservation Authority has a meeting, as usual, first Wednesday of every month at 6:30. I'm inviting the public, they may want to attend to this one because of the Section 28 regulations that are coming, and that is the policies for administration of the development, interference with wetlands, and alterations to shorelines and watercourses regulation. It's a substantial document. There's quite a bit of rules and regulations, obviously, that's what it's all about. One of the disappointing things, Mr. Chair, was that the board had asked for some public consultation to have happen. Well, staff over there felt it would be just too much work, and they're going to avoid that part of it. So the ad hoc committee was finally broken down, and now they've passed it on to the main board, so it could end up getting approved on Wednesday without any public consultation, other than the member municipalities had a little bit of input. So anyone who lives around in any of the regulated areas, you'll definitely want to have a look at that document. It's on their website. Also on that meeting, Mr. Chair, there was a parks business plan that the board had proposed staff present for us. We moved that forward on March 31st so that we could look at improving our service and different amenities at the parks of Norfolk, Waterford, Bacchus, all of those things like that. But unfortunately, Mr. Chair, that didn't get done. What I've received recently, it was on our agenda, it was as a verbal walk-on report, but I received after the fact one, and it was basically a template of doing one. So for 6 months, Mr. Chair, we're going to end up with a template. And unfortunately, the bad part of that to this council is that the capital plan or the capital requirement for the Conservation Authority won't be able to be changed now because that plan is not in place. So we're going to get dinged on that, where it could have been prevented had things been done in a timely manner. But it never ceases to amaze me, Mr. Chair, how even our Norfolk County strategic plan, it calls for management to do business plans. But they're very seldom done. I think I've sat here for 3 years now, and I've seen one come out of Public Works, and that was for the locates. And it was well done, but other than that, even though our strategic plan calls for it, it's always odd that government actually never really does business plans. You would think if you're running a whole company that to do one of your division's business plans would be pretty straightforward, right? But that's that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I think what I have to say is you can't have any more time off. You've got too much time to think. Councilor Columbus.
Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking I'm going to be positive and optimistic. With respect to the Delhi Quans Dam microhydro project by Greenbug, we did get some 2-page information in our information package here on page 42 that things are progressing. It's been on the books for quite some time, and they got to get all these different players in line to make it happen, but it is progressing forward. So I'm very pleased that Michael Simoes sent us this this update, and hopefully we can get it started and built next year. Thank you.
Councilor Oliver, you wish to add to the
Mr. Chair, other than
discussion?
supporting Councillor Columbus's enthusiasm about seeing that Greenbug project finished, I have nothing further to add. I've been saying for several years, I hope it's done before the 2018 municipal election, that's all.
All right, let's go to staff. Mr. Johnson, anything for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to add.
Thank you very much. Sir, would you like to add to our discussion?
No, I have nothing to add.
Wait, no, this is great. How about you, Mr. Barrett? You fellows don't be looking for a raise, but you're doing all right. Mr. County Manager.
The only thing I have to add is that with respect to the report that will be coming forth from Employee Business Services pertaining to insurance, due to some further additional information, it will be delayed until early November rather than being received later this month. So it'll be a 2-week delay, one cycle. That's all. Thank you.
I think we can live with that. Adam, Deputy Clerk, would you like to add your 2 cents worth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing tonight.
Mr. Gridley?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
And I have nothing.
I'd say thank you very much for coming, though. We were glad to have you here. We are now going into a closed session, and there'll be no report coming out. Well, but I need a mover and a seconder to get us in. Councillor Brunton, Councillor Sonnenberg. All in favor? We are in closed session.